The great council chamber floated in space like a crystal crown above Centauri Prime. Inside its transparent walls, 12 species gathered around a circular table that glowed with soft blue light. Each representative sat in chairs designed for their unique bodies. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like they were made of living metal. They had come from across the galaxy to make one important decision. Ambassador Hannah stood in the center of the circle, her hands clasped behind her back. She wore a simple black uniform with Earth's symbol on her shoulder. Her face remained calm, but her eyes showed the fire burning inside. She had known this moment would come. For 5 years she had tried to convince these beings that humanity deserved a place among the stars. For 5 years they had treated her like a child asking to sit at the adult table. High Arbiter Velmora rose from her seat. She was tall and elegant, with silver skin that shimmered under the chamber lights. Her 4 eyes looked down at Hannah with something that might have been pity. "Ambassador, we have reached our decision," she said. Her voice echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into thousands of languages across the galaxy. Hannah said nothing. She simply waited. "The Galactic Council has voted on the matter of humanity's petition for membership," Velmora continued. "The vote is unanimous. Earth will be placed under indefinite quarantine. No human vessel will be permitted to leave your star system. No trade will be conducted. No technology will be shared. You will remain in your system until such time as you prove yourselves worthy of joining galactic society." Around the circle, the other representatives nodded their approval. The Velkrish general, Borin, showed his teeth in what his species considered a smile. "Your kind is too violent, too unpredictable," he said. "In your short history, you have fought countless wars among yourselves. You cannot even unite your own planet. How can we trust you with the galaxy?" Hannah took a slow breath. "We came here in peace," she said quietly. "We asked only for a chance to prove ourselves. We offered friendship, trade, and knowledge. And you respond by making us prisoners in our own home." "It is for the good of all," Velmora said. "In time, perhaps your species will mature. Until then, this is our final word." "Then let me leave you with mine," Hannah said. She looked around the circle, meeting each alien gaze without fear. "Humanity has faced extinction before. We have been pushed to the edge and told we could go no further. Every time we found a way forward, every time we survived. You think you can cage us, but you're making a mistake. We will not accept this judgment. We will not sit quietly while you decide our fate. Remember this moment, because you will regret it." The chamber fell silent. Then, one by one, the representatives began to laugh. Not all of them, but enough. They thought she was bluffing. They thought humans were just loud children throwing tantrums. "Remove her," Velmora said with a wave of her hand. Guards stepped forward, their weapons humming with energy. Hannah didn't resist. She walked out of the chamber with her head held high. Behind her, she could hear the representatives already moving on to other matters, dismissing humanity as easily as they might swat away an insect. But Hannah smiled as she left. They had no idea what was coming, far beyond the orbit of Neptune. In the cold darkness at the edge of Earth's solar system, a massive fleet hung in space. 30 warships, each one bristling with weapons and armor, waited in perfect formation. They had been built in secret over the past 3 years, constructed in hidden shipyards that the Council's surveillance had never detected. Humanity had learned quickly that in space, no one could see what you did in the dark. Admiral Taesung stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Horizon's Edge. He was a man in his 50s, with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes that spoke of hard decisions and sleepless nights. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations, their faces focused and calm. They had trained for this moment. They knew what was at stake. "Signal received from Ambassador Hannah," the communications officer reported. "The Council has issued the quarantine order." Sung nodded slowly. "Then they've made their choice," he said. "Sound the alert. All ships prepare for jump to faster than light speed. Target coordinates, Centauri Prime." Round him, the bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Warning lights flashed across every console. Throughout the fleet, crews rushed to their battle stations. Fighter pilots climbed into their cockpits. Marines checked their weapons, one last time. Everyone knew their role. Sir, his second-in-command said quietly, there's still time to call this off. Once we do this, there's no going back. Tae-soon turned to look at the young officer. They were never going to let us join them peacefully, he said. We tried diplomacy. We tried patience. We tried everything except what they respect, strength. Today we show them that humanity cannot be ignored. Deep in the fleet, Captain Ji-woo sat in the commander's chair of the Silent Thunder, a stealth frigate designed to be invisible to most sensors. Her ship was smaller than the others, built for speed and deception rather than raw firepower. She and her crew had a special mission, one that would be crucial to the plan's success. All systems green, her pilot reported. Stealth generators at full power. Ji-woo tapped her fingers on the armrest of her chair. She had been against this plan at first. War seemed like madness when facing an entire galaxy of advanced civilizations. But then she had read the intelligence reports, the data that Earth's spies had gathered over years of careful observation. The Council wasn't as united as they pretended. Their military forces were designed to fight each other in traditional ways. They had forgotten what it meant to face an enemy that didn't follow their rules. How long until we jump? She asked. 2 minutes, the pilot replied. Ji-woo allowed herself a small smile. The Council thought they knew humans. They had studied Earth's broadcasts, watched their wars, and decided that humanity was primitive and predictable. They had made a fatal error. They assumed humans would fight like everyone else in the galaxy. They were wrong. All ships report ready. Tae-sung's voice came over the fleet channel. This is it, everyone. Remember, we strike fast, and we strike hard. Show them what humanity can do when pushed into a corner. For Earth, thousands of voices echoed back. The countdown reached 0. Space itself seemed to tear open as 30 human warships vanished in flashes of light. Jumping across the vast distance between stars, they were heading toward Centauri Prime, toward the heart of galactic power, toward a fight that would change everything in the council chamber. The representatives had moved on to discussing trade agreements. They sipped their drinks and made their deals, confident in their power and their superiority. None of them noticed the small fluctuation in their sensors. None of them saw the warning signs that would only make sense later. The storm was coming.
Oh.
And they had no idea. The celebration in the council chamber continued late into the evening. Representatives from across the galaxy raised their glasses in toast after toast, celebrating what they believed was a wise decision. The human problem had been solved without bloodshed. They felt proud of themselves for showing such restraint. High Arbiter Velmora stood by the massive observation window, looking down at Centauri Prime below. The planet glowed with the lights of billions of inhabitants. Around it, defense platforms hung in orbit like protective guardians. These weapons had kept the peace for 300 years. Nothing had ever threatened them. That was about to change. At the edge of the Centauri system, space suddenly erupted with light. 30 points of brilliance appeared simultaneously, and from each one emerged a human warship. The vessels were angular and aggressive, covered in armor plating that made them look like predators. They moved with purpose, their engines burning bright as they accelerated toward the inner system. On the lead assault carrier, Indomitable. Captain Daehayan watched the tactical display update with enemy positions. He was younger than most fleet captains, only 35 years old. But he had earned his rank through skill and determination. His crew trusted him completely. All fighters prepare for launch, he ordered calmly. Weapons, target the defense platforms. Navigation, plot us a course through their formation. Let's make this quick. Sir, they're still not responding to our approach, the communications officer said. I don't think they believe we're really here. They will in about 30 seconds, Daehayan replied. Lieutenant Yuna, his tactical officer, highlighted targets on the main screen. She was brilliant at her job, able to see patterns and chaos that others missed. Platform 7 is their command hub, she said. If we take it out first, their defensive network will fragment. They'll have to coordinate manually. Do it, Daehan ordered. The Indomitable's main guns opened fire. Beams of concentrated energy lanced across space, covering the distance in seconds. The first platform exploded in a ball of fire, debris spinning away in all directions. Before the others could react, more human ships joined the attack. One by one, the ancient defensive platforms began to die. Alarms finally started blaring across the Centauri system. Military ships scrambled to launch. Defense forces activated their weapons, but they were too slow. The humans had planned this attack with precision, studying every detail of Centauri's defenses for months. They knew where every ship would be, how long it would take them to respond, and exactly how to exploit the gaps. Fighter pilot Minho grinned inside his cockpit as he led his squadron away from the Indomitable. His small craft was fast and nimble, designed by humans who understood that in space, speed could be more valuable than armor. Around him, 20 other fighters formed up in perfect formation. "Viper Squadron, this is Viper Lead," he called over the radio. "We've got incoming defenders at 2 o'clock. Let's show them how Earth pilots fly." The alien fighters came at them in neat, organized lines, following tactics that were hundreds of years old. They flew with caution, maintaining proper spacing and support formations. Minho's squadron tore through them like wolves through sheep. Human pilots didn't fly carefully. They flew with controlled aggression, taking risks that alien pilots would never consider. They broke formation, spun through impossible angles, and pushed their fighters to the absolute limit of what the machines could handle. In atmosphere, such flying would have been suicide. In space, it was devastating. To down. One of Minho's wingmen shouted, "3 down. These guys can't keep up." In the council chamber, someone finally noticed what was happening. A junior assistant rushed to Velmora's side, his face pale with fear. "Hi, Arbiter. We're under attack." "What?" Velmora turned from the window. "Attack. From whom?" "The humans, ma'am. They have warships. Dozens of them. They're destroying our defense platforms." The chamber fell silent. Every representative turned to look at the assistant as if he had just said the planet was made of cheese. It was impossible. Humans didn't have faster-than-light travel. They didn't have warships. They were primitive. General Borin, the Velkrish military commander, activated his communicator. "This is General Borin. Give me a status report immediately." The response came back crackling with static and the sound of explosions. "General, we're taking heavy casualties." The human fleet appeared without warning. "They're using weapons we've never seen before. Our platforms are falling one after another. We need reinforcements now." Borin's face went dark with rage. "How is this possible?" he roared. "They were supposed to be confined to their system. They don't have this technology." "Apparently, they do now," Velmora said quietly. She pressed her hands against the window, watching fires bloom in the sky as her defenses burned. "What have we done?" On the bridge of the Indomitable, Daehan watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. The enemy was confused, scattered, unable to mount an organized defense. But he knew this was just the beginning. Captain Yuna called out, "We're receiving a transmission from the Velkrish command ship. They're requesting our surrender." Daehan almost laughed. "Their surrender? Or ours?" "Ours, sir. They still think they can win this. Send them this message. We're not here to surrender. We're here to make a point. All targeting solutions look good?" "Affirmative, sir. Weapons are locked on their command ship. Fire." The Indomitable's weapons blazed again. The Velkrish command ship tried to evade, but it was too large and slow. The first shots collapsed its shields. The second barrage tore through its hull, crippling its engines and weapon systems. It didn't explode, but it might as well have. It was dead in space. Helpless Mina brought his fighter around for another pass, his ammunition running low but his spirits high. He could see other human squadrons engaging enemy forces across the battlefield. Everywhere he looked, human ships were winning. Not because they had better technology, but because they fought smarter and harder. "Viper led. This is Indomitable." Daehan's voice came over his radio. "Begin Phase 2. Hit their communications array. Copy that. Indomitable. You heard the Captain, Vipers? Follow me in." The squadron dove toward a massive satellite that served as Centaura's main communications hub. Defensive fire tried to track them, but the human fighters danced between the shots. Their pilots making split-second decisions that their training and instincts guided perfectly. They released their missiles in a coordinated strike, and the communications array exploded in a spectacular display of light and debris. Throughout the Centaurus system, alien forces suddenly found themselves cut off from each other, unable to coordinate their defense. Individual ships fought bravely, but without central command. They were just targets. In the council chamber, panic had replaced celebration. Representatives shouted at each other, demanding explanations, screaming orders that no one could follow. Their perfect, peaceful galaxy had been shattered in less than an hour by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Velmora stood silently at the window, watching her world burn. She had underestimated humanity. They all had. The humans hadn't asked permission to develop faster than light travel. They hadn't waited for approval to build a fleet. They had simply done it in secret, while the council watched and assumed they knew everything. "How many ships have we lost?" she asked quietly. The assistant checked his datapad, his hands shaking. 17 defense platforms destroyed. 9 ships disabled or destroyed. Casualties are in the thousands. And the humans? They've lost 3 fighters. That's all. Velmora closed her eyes. This wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. The humans were showing the galaxy that they couldn't be contained, couldn't be controlled, couldn't be dismissed. And they were doing it in the most public way possible, right in front of the council itself. "Get me a communication channel to their fleet commander," she said. Now, Captain Dehayan received the request moments later. He looked at Yuna, who nodded. They had achieved their objectives. The defenses were broken. The council was watching. Now came the most important part. "Open the channel," he ordered. "Let's talk." The space around Centaur Prime had grown quiet. Human fighters circled the wreckage of defense platforms like sharks around wounded prey. Disabled alien warships drifted helplessly, their crews working frantically to restore power. And in the middle of it all, the human fleet held position. Weapons still charged, but no longer firing. Then space tore open once more, and a single massive ship emerged. The horizon's edge was larger than any other vessel in the human fleet, its hull scarred from years of hidden construction and testing. On its bridge, Admiral Taesung stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking at the council station through the view screen. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies. I want every ship, every station, every planet in communication range to hear this." His communications officer worked quickly. "Channel open, sir? You're broadcasting to approximately 40 billion devices across 12 star systems." Taesun took a breath. This was the moment everything had been building toward. The attack had been necessary to get their attention, but words would determine whether humanity won or lost this war. "People of the galaxy," he began, his voice calm and measured. "I am Admiral Taesung of the Earth Defense Fleet. 6 hours ago, your Galactic Council voted to imprison my species in our home system. They decided, without our consent, that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed among the stars. They judged us unworthy based on their own prejudices and fears." In the council chamber, the representatives listened in stunned silence. Some looked angry. Others looked terrified. All of them understood that this was a moment that would be remembered for generations. "We came to you in peace," Taesung continued. "We asked for nothing but the chance to prove ourselves. We offered friendship, trade, and cooperation. You responded by making us prisoners. So let me be clear. Humanity does not accept your judgment. We will not be caged. We will not be contained. We will take our place among the stars, with or without your permission." Captain Ji Woo listened to the Admiral's speech from her position near the system's edge, her stealth ship invisible to all sensors. She had a different mission, one that would reveal just how much humanity had learned about the galaxy while pretending to be ignorant. "The Council believes they know us," Taesung said. "They studied our history and saw our wars. They saw our conflicts and decided we were too violent, too primitive, but they failed to understand what those wars taught us. We learned to adapt. We learned to innovate. We learned that survival requires more than strength. It requires intelligence, determination, and the will to do whatever is necessary. On Earth, billions of people watched the broadcast in their homes, on the streets, and public squares. Some cheered. Others wept. All of them felt pride swelling in their chests. Their species had been insulted, dismissed, and imprisoned. Now they were fighting back. Kyung-Su, the commander of Earth's intelligence division, sat in a bunker deep beneath Seoul, coordinating the information warfare aspect of the operation. His team had spent years infiltrating galactic networks, learning their secrets, mapping their communications. Now, they unleashed everything they had discovered. "Release the files," he ordered. Across the galaxy, information began flooding every public network. Documents, videos, and recordings that the Council had kept hidden for centuries. Evidence of wars they claimed never happened. Records of species they had destroyed or subjugated. Proof that the Council's image of peace and harmony was a carefully constructed lie. Tae-soon smiled as reports came in that the information dump was working. The Council has portrayed itself as benevolent, as wise, as guardians of galactic peace, he said. But we have evidence that tells a different story. For the past 3 years, while you watched us and thought we were ignorant, we were watching you. We learned your secrets. We discovered your lies. And now we're sharing them with everyone. In the council chamber, chaos erupted. Representatives shouted at each other, demanding to know how humans had accessed their classified files. Security officers scrambled to shut down the leaks. But the information was already spreading too fast to contain. Ambassador Hannah walked back into the chamber. Escorted by guards who were no longer sure if they should arrest her or protect her, she took her position in the center of the circle again, but this time she didn't stand like a petitioner. She stood like an equal. "You wanted to know if humanity was worthy of joining your council," she said quietly. "Here's your answer. We're not just worthy. We're necessary. Your council has grown old and complacent. You've forgotten what it means to struggle, to fight for survival. You make decisions based on maintaining your own power, not on what's right or just." Velmora stared at her, and for the first time, Hannah saw something like respect in those alien eyes. "What do you want?" the High Arbiter asked. "Admiral Tae-soon will tell you," Hannah replied. On his flagship, Tae-soon delivered the ultimatum that would reshape the galaxy. "We offer you a choice," he said. "Recognize Earth as a sovereign power with full rights and representation in the Galactic Council. Remove the quarantine. Treat us as equals, or refuse, and we will continue to resist. We will disrupt your trade routes. We will aid any species that seeks freedom from your control. We will become the chaos you feared we would be." "This is extortion," General Boren growled in the council chamber. "No," Hannah corrected. "This is negotiation. Extortion would be if we destroyed your stations and conquered your worlds. We're offering you a way to end this peacefully. The choice is yours." Tae-sung continued his broadcast. "We're not asking you to trust us. We're not asking you to like us. We're simply demanding that you respect us. Humanity has proven today that we cannot be ignored or dismissed. We have the technology, the weapons, and the will to defend our freedom. But we would prefer peace. We would prefer cooperation. The galaxy is large enough for all of us." Throughout the fleet, human crews waited tensely for the Council's response. They had won the first battle, but the war could still go either way. If the Council chose to fight, humanity would face enemies from across the galaxy. It would be a long, bloody conflict with no guarantee of victory. Minho sat in his fighter cockpit, still circling the battlefield, and wondered if his daughter back on Earth would grow up in a galaxy at war or at peace. He had volunteered for this mission knowing he might not return. All of them had, but they had done it because they believed humanity deserved better than a cage. Captain Daehyun watched his tactical display, tracking the movements of alien ships still in the system. Most had withdrawn to defensive positions, waiting for orders. A few were trying to regroup for a counterattack, but they lacked coordination. The humans had broken their command structure too effectively. Stir Lieutenant Eunice said softly, "Whatever happens next, you should know that the crew believes in what we're doing." "We're with you all the way," Daehyun nodded, grateful for her words. Leadership was lonely, especially when the weight of an entire species rested on your decisions. Taesoon concluded his broadcast with words that would be quoted for centuries to come. The council asked if humanity was ready to join the galaxy. Our answer is this: we were born ready. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages, plagues, and our own worst instincts. We reached for the stars, despite being told it was impossible. And now we stand here among you because we refuse to accept any other outcome. You can work with us or against us, but you cannot stop us. The choice is yours. You have 48 hours to decide. Transmission ended. Silence fell across the Centauri system. On planets and stations across multiple star systems, billions of beings processed what they had just heard. Some were angry. Some were frightened. Some were intrigued. The galaxy would never be the same. In the council chamber, Velmora looked at her fellow representatives. "We need to vote," she said quietly. "But this time, I suggest we think very carefully about our decision." The debate that followed would determine the fate of 2 civilizations, and possibly the entire galaxy. The 48 hours passed slowly. On Earth, people waited with mixed hope and dread. In the Centauri system, the human fleet maintained its position, weapons ready, but not firing. And in the council chamber, the representatives argued endlessly about what to do. The vote, when it finally came, was not unanimous. 7 species voted to negotiate with humanity. 5 voted for war. But those 5 included the Velkrish Empire, the most powerful military force in the galaxy. General Boren made his position clear. "We will not negotiate with terrorists," he declared, slamming his fist on the table. "These humans attacked us without provocation. They destroyed our property and killed our people. If we bow to their demands now, every other species in the galaxy will think they can threaten us into giving them what they want. The Council's authority will mean nothing." "They attacked because we imprisoned them," one of the other representatives argued. "Perhaps we made a mistake." "We made no mistake," Boren roared. "Our only error was not taking stronger action sooner. I am recalling the Velkrish 4th Fleet from the border territories. 300 warships will arrive here within a week. We will crush this human rebellion and remind the galaxy why the Council is not to be challenged." Velmora tried to maintain order, but the Council was fracturing. Some species were secretly pleased to see humanity stand up to the Velkrish. Others feared what would happen if the war escalated. The unity that had held the galaxy together for centuries was cracking. Admiral soon received word of the Velkrish mobilization within hours. His intelligence network was better than the Council realized. He called an immediate meeting with his senior officers. "They're sending everything they have," he said, displaying the tactical data on a holographic map. 300 ships, including 20 dreadnoughts. They'll arrive in 6 days. We have 30 ships. The math is not in our favor. Captain Daehyun studied the map carefully. "We can't win a straight fight. Not against those numbers." "We don't intend to," said a new voice. Captain Sujin entered the conference room, her uniform still covered in the grime of her stealth ship. She was thin and sharp-featured, with eyes that never seemed to stop calculating. "My team has been busy while you've been negotiating." She uploaded her own data to the holographic display. It showed the Velkrish staging area, hundreds of light years away, where their fleet was gathering before jumping to Centauri. "We've had stealth ships watching this location for 3 weeks," she explained. "We know their patrol patterns. We know their defensive arrangements. We know their weaknesses." Taesoon smiled. "Tell me you have a plan." "Better than that," Sujin replied. "I have 12 stealth ships already in position. When the Velkrish fleet jumps to Centauri, they'll leave their staging area almost undefended. We can strike at their supply depots, their command centers, their manufacturing facilities. Cut off the head, and the body dies." "That's a one-way mission," Daehyun said quietly. "Even with stealth, you'll be deep in enemy territory with no support." Sujin shrugged. "Every mission is potentially a one-way mission. At least this one matters." The plan was approved. While the Velkrish fleet prepared to crush humanity's forces at Centauri, A small group of human stealth ships would infiltrate their home territory and cause as much damage as possible. It was a desperate gamble, but Taesong had learned long ago that desperate gambles were sometimes the only option. Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Hannah tried one last time to avoid a lot war. General Boren, please reconsider. Humans are willing to negotiate in good faith. We don't want to fight you and surrender, Boren replied coldly. Abandon your ships. Return to Earth. Accept the quarantine. Those are my terms, you know. We can't do that. Then prepare to die. Boren stood and left the chamber. His decision made. 6 days later, the Velkrish Fourth Fleet arrived at the edge of the Centaurus system. 300 warships, each one massive and powerful, emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They were the pride of the Velkrish Empire. Veterans of a dozen campaigns, commanded by Marshal Wexler, a warrior who had never lost a battle. He looked at his tactical display and saw the human fleet waiting for them. 30 small ships against his armada. He felt almost disappointed. This would not be a battle. It would be an execution. All ships, attack formation, he ordered. Destroy the human vessels. Leave no survivors. The Velkrish fleet advanced like a tidal wave of metal and fire. Human ships scattered before them, breaking into smaller groups, refusing to stand and fight. To Wexler, it looked like cowardice. But Admiral Taesoon was not running from fear. He was following a plan that humans had perfected over thousands of years of warfare on Earth. When facing a superior enemy, you don't fight on their terms. You make them fight on yours. All ships execute pattern Delta 7, Taesong ordered calmly. Make them chase us. The human fleet split into 5 groups, each one darting in different directions. The Velkrish fleet tried to maintain formation while pursuing multiple targets. Wexler ordered his ships to split up as well, sending squadrons after each human group. That was exactly what Taesoon wanted, he said quietly. Captain Jiwoo's stealth ship had been hiding near an asteroid field for the past 6 days. Now she emerged, along with a dozen other stealth vessels that the Velkrish had never detected. They appeared in the middle of the enemy formation, where the larger ships were most vulnerable. Confusion erupted through the Velkrish ranks. Ships tried to target the stealth vessels, but struggled to lock on. The humans fired at point-blank range, their weapons tearing into the larger ships from angles they couldn't defend. 3 dreadnoughts exploded within minutes. 2 more sustained critical damage. Where did they come from? Wexler demanded, his confidence shaken for the first time in his career. But the surprises weren't over. Colonel Hyenwoo and his marine teams had been hiding inside. Cargo containers that the Velkrish fleet had picked up from an abandoned supply depot days earlier. Now those containers opened, and human marines swarmed into the corridors of the enemy's largest ships. The Velkrish were strong and experienced warriors, but they were trained to fight in formation, following centuries-old tactics. Human marines fought like demons, using unconventional strategies and taking risks no sane soldier would attempt. They sabotaged engines, destroyed control systems, and turned the mighty dreadnoughts into floating tombs. On the bridge of his flagship, Wexler watched his perfect formation collapse into chaos. Human ships weren't standing still to be destroyed. They were everywhere and nowhere, striking from unexpected angles and then disappearing before his ships could respond. His crews were panicking, firing at shadows, hitting each other more often than they hit the enemy. Fall back. He finally ordered, regroup at the outer system. But falling back in good order requires discipline and communication. The human attacks had disrupted both. Velkrish ships fled in different directions, some abandoning their damaged comrades, others trying to maintain formation and being destroyed for their loyalty. The retreat became a rout. Minho led his fighter squadron through the chaos, targeting enemy weapon systems and engines. His ammunition was running low, but he didn't need much. The Velkrish ships were so focused on the larger threats that they barely noticed the tiny fighters darting between them like angry wasps. Viper led. You're getting too close to that cruiser, his wingman warned. I know what I'm doing, Minho replied, threading his fighter through a gap between 2 massive ships. He fired his last missiles at the cruiser's reactor, then banked hard to avoid the explosion. The blast wave caught his fighter and sent it spinning, but he regained control and pulled away. Back at the Velkrish staging area, Captain Sujin's stealth ships emerged from hiding and began their attacks. Without the main fleet to protect it, the staging area was vulnerable. Supply depots exploded. Manufacturing facilities crumbled. Command centers went dark. The Velkrish had left their home territory undefended, and now they were paying the price. Sujin stood on her bridge, watching the destruction with no satisfaction. She took no joy in killing, even enemies. But she understood necessity. Target the communications hub next, she ordered. If they can't coordinate, they can't respond. Engineer June worked frantically to keep their stealth systems running. The human cloaking technology was new and unstable, prone to overheating. Captain, we can't maintain stealth much longer. We need to withdraw soon. Not yet, Sujin replied. We finish the mission first. Then we run. At Centaur Prime, Marshal Dexler finally managed to gather what remained of his fleet. Of the 300 ships he had brought to the battle, nearly 80 were destroyed or disabled. Another 100 were damaged. His pride, his reputation, and his fleet were all in ruins. And the humans had suffered minimal losses. How's this possible? He asked no one in particular. They're primitive. They should not be able to do this. But Admiral Taesung had studied human military history carefully before planning this campaign. He had read about ancient Earth generals who defeated larger armies through strategy and cunning. He had learned from guerrilla fighters who toppled empires. He had understood that technology was not enough. Victory required understanding your enemy and exploiting their weaknesses. The Velkrish fought like they always had, with overwhelming force and traditional tactics. Humanity fought like humans always had, with creativity, adaptability, and a refusal to follow anyone's rules but their own. The message was clear to everyone watching. The galaxy had changed. The old powers could no longer simply crush anyone who challenged them. A new force had arrived. It would not be denied. The galaxy watched in shock as images of the battle spread across every communication network. The mighty Velkrish Fourth Fleet, pride of the Empire, had been defeated by a force 1/10 its size. The impossible had happened, and no one could quite believe it. In the council chamber, the mood had shifted dramatically. The representatives who had voted for war now sat quietly, their confidence shattered. General Boren refused to attend the emergency session, reportedly locked in his quarters and refusing to speak to anyone. His military career was over, and he knew it. High Arbiter Velmora called the session to order, her voice heavy with exhaustion. She had not slept in 3 days. We have received a communication from Admiral Taesung. He is willing to resume negotiations. I believe we should listen to what he has to say. No one objected. Even the most hardline representatives had lost their appetite for continued conflict. The humans had proven they could not be beaten by conventional means, and no one wanted to find out what unconventional means they might employ next. Ambassador Hannah stood in her usual spot in the center of the chamber, but this time the representatives did not look down at her with contempt. They looked at her with wary respect, the kind of respect earned through strength rather than given through mercy. The terms are simple, she said, her voice calm but firm. Earth requests full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. The quarantine will be lifted immediately. Human ships will have freedom of movement throughout galactic space. In return, humanity will cease all military operations and withdraw our fleet from Centaur Prime, and if we refuse, one representative asked, though his tone suggested he already knew it was not really a question. Then we continue as we have been, Hannah replied. But I don't think anyone wants that. Not after what has happened. Velmora looked around the chamber. We will vote. All in favor of accepting humanity's petition for membership? One by one, representatives raised their hands or activated their voting consoles or made whatever gesture their species used to indicate agreement. The vote was not unanimous, but it was overwhelming. 11 species voted yes. Only one abstained. It is decided, Velmora announced. Humanity is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Council. Welcome, Ambassador Hannah. Welcome to the galaxy. Hannah bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that acknowledged the moment's significance. But inside, she felt a complex mixture of emotions. They had one, but at what cost? Thousands had died in the fighting. Trust, that could have been built through decades of patient diplomacy, had been replaced with fear and suspicion. Humanity had earned its place at the table. But it would be a long time before they were truly accepted. Admiral. Taesong received the news on his flagship and allowed himself a small smile. The gamble had paid off. Humanity was free. But he knew this was just the beginning of a much longer journey. All ships prepare to withdraw, he ordered. Set course for Earth orbit. We're going home. The human fleet began moving away from Centauri Prime, their weapons powered down, their mission complete. On every ship, crews celebrated with quiet relief. They had survived. They had won. And they would get to see their families again. Captain Daehyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the stars stream past as they accelerated away from the battlefield. Lieutenant Yuna approached him with a data pad. "Final casualty reports, sir," she said quietly. "We lost 18 fighters and their pilots. 243 wounded across the fleet. The Silent Thunder took significant damage but will make it home." Daehyun nodded, his expression somber. Every number on that report represented a person, someone with a family, with dreams, with a life cut short or forever changed. Victory had a price, and he would carry the weight of that price for the rest of his life. "Make sure every family receives full benefits and honors," he said, "and I want to personally write letters to each one." Yes, sir. But humanity's victory had consequences beyond the simple military outcome. 3 species that had been dominated by the Council's major powers watched what had happened and saw an opportunity. If humans could stand up to the Council, perhaps they could too. Admiral Taesoon received the first request within 24 hours of the vote. The Corvani, a peaceful trading species that had been exploited by the Velkrish for generations, asked for Earth's protection. Then came the Talani. Then the Whispers. Taesoon brought the requests to Hannah, now officially Earth's representative on the Council. "What do we do?" he asked. "If we help them, we'll make enemies of the species currently controlling them. But if we don't, we'll look like hypocrites who fought for our own freedom, but won't help others achieve theirs." Hannah studied the requests carefully. This was the test that mattered. Would humanity use its newfound power to help others, or just to protect itself? The decision would define Earth's role in the galaxy for centuries to come. "We help them," she said finally. "We offer protection to any species that asks for it. But we also make it clear that we're not building an empire. We're building something different. An alliance of equals, based on mutual respect and cooperation rather than domination." "The Council won't like that," Taesong warned. "The Council will adapt," Hannah replied with a slight smile. "They're good at that." 3 months later, Centauri Prime hosted the signing of what would become known as the Centauri Accords. The treaty formally recognized Earth's membership in the Council and established new principles for how the galaxy would be governed. The major powers retained their positions, but new protections were put in place for smaller species. Economic exploitation was banned. Military subjugation was prohibited, and any species had the right to petition for independence without fear of retaliation. The treaty was far from perfect. Old prejudices and power structures did not disappear overnight, but it was a start, a foundation that future generations could build upon. Young Officer Yoonji attended the signing ceremony as part of Hannah's security detail. She was only 23 years old, barely out of the academy when the fleet launched. She had served on the Indomitable during the battle, working in engineering and watching the war unfold through status reports and damage assessments. Now she stood in the Great Hall, where humanity had been judged and condemned just months earlier, watching representatives from across the galaxy sign a treaty that her species had forced them to accept. It felt surreal. "What are you thinking?" Hannah asked her quietly during a break in the ceremony. "I'm thinking about how much has changed," Yoongi replied. "A year ago, we were trapped in our own solar system. Now we're here, equals among species that have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. And what do you think happens next?" Hannah asked. Eun-ji looked around the hall, seeing the mixture of respect, fear, and resentment in alien eyes. I think we've made a lot of enemies. I think some species will never forgive us for disrupting their comfortable order. And I think we're going to face challenges we can't even imagine yet. That's a very mature assessment, Hannah said with approval. But I also think we're going to be okay, Youngji continued. Because we're humans. We're good at facing challenges. It's kind of what we do, Hannah smiled. Indeed, it is. 6 months after the signing of the Centaura Accords, the human fleet returned to Earth orbit as heroes. Cities across the planet held celebrations. Parades filled the streets, and millions of people looked up at the stars with new hope. Knowing that humanity's future was no longer confined to a single world, Admiral Tazon retired from military service and accepted a position as Earth's military advisor to the Council. Captain Daehyun took command of the new expanded fleet, tasked with protecting not just Earth but all the species that had joined humanity's alliance. Captain Sujin became director of the intelligence service. Continuing to watch and learn and prepare for whatever threats might emerge, Minho returned to his family. Hugging his daughter tight and promising never to leave again, he kept that promise for exactly 2 years before volunteering for the exploration, missions that would map new regions of the galaxy. Some pilots could never quite adjust to life on the ground. Ambassador Hannah continued to serve on the council, where she became known for her careful diplomacy and her iron will. She never forgot that humanity had been forced to fight for its freedom, and she worked tirelessly to ensure that no other species would face the same choice. And Young Yoon-ji, after completing her tour of duty, requested assignment to one of the new exploration vessels being built in Earth orbit. These ships would venture beyond the known galaxy, seeking new worlds, new civilizations, and new challenges for humanity to overcome. She stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Discovery, looking out at the endless stars, and felt a thrill of excitement. The battle for Earth's freedom was over. But the adventure was just beginning. Behind her, the captain called out orders, and the crew rushed to their stations. The Discovery's engines powered up, and the ship began accelerating away from Earth. Heading toward the unknown, Eun-ji smiled. The Council had wanted to keep humanity in a cage, to limit them to a single system, to control their development and their destiny. Instead, they had opened the door to a species that refused to accept any limits, that saw every challenge as an opportunity, and that would never stop reaching for the stars. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly how humanity wanted it. As Earth grew smaller in the view screen, Yuji thought about all those who had fought and died to make this moment possible. She thought about the risks they had taken, the sacrifices they had made, and the courage they had shown in the face of overwhelming odds. Humanity had struck without warning, and the galaxy had watched in shock. But shock had given way to respect, respect to acceptance, and acceptance to partnership. The path ahead would not be easy. There would be more conflicts, more challenges, or moments when humanity's survival hung in the balance. But they had proven something important. They belonged among the stars. Not because anyone gave them permission, but because they had the courage to claim their place. And no force in the galaxy could take that away from them now. The Discovery jumped to faster than light speed, and Earth disappeared behind them. Ahead lay infinite possibilities, countless worlds, and the promise of a future limited only by humanity's imagination and determination. The galaxy had changed, and humanity was just getting started.